Anybody else joining us that hasn't told us that they've joined us? We have people from across. Hi, who else is joining us?
Dominic.
Lauren? Lauren here. Hi, Lauren. Dominic.
Hi. Claudette over here.
Hi, Claudette. Welcome to the...
This is Amanda. Ann Harper.
Hi, Ann. It's nice to hear your voice. This is Karen.
Hi, how are you? This is Peggy Tibbetts.
Hi, Peggy. Welcome to the call. Lots of people, lots of ding-ding-dings going on. We'll give it another minute or two.
We know we haven't caught them all.
Yeah. Lots of ding-ding to get a call. Anybody else want to say hello?
Hi, my name is Ryan.
Hi, Ryan.
This is Josh Jocelyn.
Hi, Josh. Josh is in the Front Range today, but he's from, tell me the town you're from.
Sure, go ahead. It's no secret.
Oh, you tell me. He's from...
I'm from down near Durango, a little town called Bayfield.
Bayfield. I couldn't think of the name of your town. Yeah.
Yeah. The city by the bay.
City by the bay.
When we're feeling pretentious, that's what we call ourselves now.
Yeah, I think it might be described as city by the bay. All right. Anybody else want to themselves?
So many.
Yeah, we have lots of people on.
Hi, this is Deborah Hoff. I'm with the Unitarian Universalist Church in Boulder.
Hi, Deborah. Thanks for joining us. Well, I am going to shortly put us on mute so that we will have better call clarity because people are like work on the computer and such sometimes while you're talking, and with so many we won't have good clarity. So I think I'm going to go ahead and do that. Let me see if I can do this successfully. Muted. Okay. I think we're ready to get started. Other people will be joining us. So thanks everyone for joining us tonight. We have all been so very busy, and it's good to get together on this call. I am Karen Dyke. I'm spokesperson for Coloradans Against Fracking. Coloradans Against Fracking is a statewide coalition with over 40 members. CAF is dedicated to working to end fracking in Colorado. As a reminder, everyone is now on mute so that we can protect the clarity of the call. We will have time for questions after the presentation, and you can email those questions to Raz, that's R-A-Z-Z, at frackfreecolorado.com. That's Raz, R-A-Z-Z, at frackfreecolorado.com. Since our last call, we have done a lot. We passed the Colorado Supreme Court hearings for the Longmont ban hearing and the Fort Collins moratorium. Many of us testified at COGCC hearings. Some of us have protested at BLM hearings. In Greeley, many have been to city planning meetings to try to prevent the industry from building yet another industrial complex in their city. Adams County and Thornton groups rapidly formed to fight as industry tried to move communities and next to schools. And in Erie, citizens are telling the city that they aren't being adequately protected. In northern Colorado, groups from several communities are coming together to unite against the onslaught of drilling there. On the western slope, Battlement Mesa is fighting for the life of its small town. In Grand Junction, they are saying this smelly, polluted, open pit doesn't belong next to our homes. And they're also saying, don't frack our mountain. We rallied a couple of weeks ago outside the Democratic fundraiser, and we said no more fracking. What we know is that none of these actions, as important as they are, is enough to halt this toxic industry. So tonight we invited representatives from Creed to explain the ballot initiatives they're working on. CREED is Coloradans Resisting Extreme Development. Tricia Olson is Executive Director, and Bruce Mason is a member of the Board of Directors for that organization. And then a reminder to email any questions you have to Raz, R-A-Z-Z, at frackfreecolorado.com, and we'll have some time for questions after the presentation. Tricia and Bruce, do you want to get started?
Thank you, Karen. My name is Tricia Olson, and I'm Executive Director, in this case, as sort of Chairman of the Board for Coloradans Resisting Extreme Energy Development, CREED. I'm joined by Bruce Mason, a board member, who will help answer questions. And I want to start by talking about the context for what we're doing, and then I'll get to the 2016 ballot initiatives. Along the way, I might repeat what is common knowledge to some of you, but it might be new to others and help them understand why we're running ballot initiatives. If you're on this call, you understand that Colorado is threatened by runaway oil and gas development with all the attendant harms that come with this heavy industrial process. Health impacts that range from nosebleeds and asthma to the cancer-causing benzene, air pollution, climate change, contamination of land and water, earthquakes, explosions, etc. There are fewer industry rigs right now than there were last year at this time because the prices for natural gas and oil are low. But unfortunately for Colorado, industry is still drilling new wells here. Sometimes operators drill, then plug and abandon, waiting to re-enter the well when the price goes up. But they're still drilling. Other times, industry is either just waiting for higher prices to drill, or perhaps selling their old holdings or leases to venture capitalist firms who will then wait for high prices to drill. We're in a relative low, although for some of us it doesn't seem like a low, and in any case, none of us can count on the low lasting forever. Wells in Colorado are fracked for both oil and natural gas. In 2014, Colorado was 6th in the country for natural gas and rated 7th in oil-rich states. We are one of only 3 states on lists for top producers of both natural gas and oil: Texas, Oklahoma, and us. We are a resource-rich state, and if I could send a visual over the telephone, you would be seeing Colorado with a big bullseye over it. To get a feel for where fracking is occurring now and where it may come next, I recommend looking at the website fracktracker.org. That's FRACTRACKER.org. If you click on all articles and maps and state by state and enlarge Colorado as big as you like, it takes a while to load and to the colors display, and you may have to drill down, pun intended, to see right where you live. All of the areas in either shades of pink or brown indicate shale plays and shale basins, and you can see they include the most heavily populated parts of our state. Because the productivity of wells goes down fast, and oil and gas and oil can only be recovered from fractured rocks or oil and gas reservoirs, industry would love to frack or fracture away every bit of territory they can reach with whatever technology is available at the time. And they will be even more aggressive about it when the prices rise again. Because the resource depletes, industry cannot and will not be content with what they have now. And along the Front Range, the Denver-Julesburg Basin essentially goes up to the mountains, and there's very little safe ground. Not only do we all have the ever-present brown cloud found in many areas to exceed Houston and Pasadena, along with our S and D air quality ratings from the American Lung Association, but even in this low, suburban neighborhoods and schools are fighting drilling on their doorsteps. It was particularly shocking to me when the suburban Adams County School Board, Thornton, felt compelled to lease their mineral rights under school grounds. Like mining and other activities, Colorado oil and gas development has been happening mostly unchecked, but it just cannot continue this way, both for our health and for the climate. CREED hopes that our initiatives will be legally effective and politically appealing game changers. So, initiatives. Why not something else? Most people think of regulations first when they think of protection from heavy industrial operations. Maybe some of you still think that regulations passed by the legislature are rules formulated by the Colorado Oil and Gas Conservation Commission, that's the COGCC for short, are the way to go. And certainly, that's how they try to soothe us in this state. The state and industry tell us that Colorado has the strongest oil and gas regulations, and we're safe. Never mind that other states also claim to have the strongest. Never mind that some damning health and air quality studies in the New York Compendium were done in Colorado, similar to what we have now. Cree doesn't believe that Colorado has strong regulations or that our families and homes are safe. Colorado's regulations were based on regulations formulated by the Koch brothers, ALEC, the American Legislative Exchange Council. Merely listing some of the chemicals used in fracking doesn't protect you from those chemicals. It obviously isn't protecting our air quality. And a little bit more about our supposedly strongest rules. I like to quote one specific regulation currently on the books. COGCC Rule 502E1 starts with, quote, variances to any commission rules, regulations, or orders may be granted in writing by the director without a hearing upon written request by an operator to the director or by the commission after hearing upon application, and continues. It goes on. And I would read the rest. But the takeaway from that long rule is that there are waivers and variances that can be granted if an operator or oil and gas company can't comply with the rules. So we have a rule that says that if you can't comply with the rules, then you might not have to. You've also all likely heard about Colorado's setback rules, the distance between wells and homes, schools, and hospitals. The state setback is a measly 500 feet from home, which is not even 2 football fields away. On what science is this based? On health? Nope. On explosions? Nope. In addition, a property owner can waive setbacks. The director can waive setbacks. Setbacks don't even apply to plugged and abandoned wells that are reopened or re-entered. And these supposedly great rules aren't always followed. The DU Environmental Law Clinic did an analysis for the Sierra Club in 2015, and they found that the current administration, the COGCC, is approving oil and gas drilling their homes, schools, and businesses without even following its own regulations. So what we have are weak rules, waivers and variances, rules not followed. Our Colorado oil and gas rules are essentially a sham and don't protect our neighborhoods or the world from climate change either. So, how did this situation evolve? And by the way, I'll get to the initiatives. This is just all the lead up. But anyway, how did this situation evolve? Colorado has a history of encouraging mining and resource exploitation. But what allows it to continue like this in the neighborhoods next to homes? The laws on the books do this. I wish I had a screen to show you sections of the Colorado Oil and Gas Conservation Act, the law that created the COGCC, the agency that makes and enforces these rules and passes out the oil and gas permits. Among other things, it says, and the first part is especially important, it is declared, quote, it is declared to be in the public interest to, one, foster the responsible, balanced development, production, and utilization of the natural resources of oil and gas in the state of Colorado in a manner consistent with the protection of public health, safety, and welfare, including protection of the environment and wildlife resources. The parts of that sentence to pay attention to are, quote, in the public interest to foster oil and gas. Declaring that oil and gas is in the public interest has been interpreted by the state courts and the state government, including the COGCC, to be a mandate to develop oil and gas, a mandate to frack because industry says they need to use fracking. And the basic priority is to get as much out of the ground as you can, with everything else secondary. They pretty much ignored the part about the protection of public health, safety, and welfare. Those terms, public interest and state interest, have made it difficult for local communities to do anything to protect their residents. In 2 disastrous rulings made on the same day in 1992, the Colorado Supreme Court made it very difficult for local communities to protect their residents. In one case called Boss, the state or public interest in oil and gas was used by the court to strike down, ironically, the Greeley drilling ban, finding that a home rule city could only exercise its land use authority in a way that didn't impede or hinder that public interest. Since the public interest was to foster or promote since the public interest, which was determined by the legislature, was to foster or promote, that left things like fence colors and noise reduction up to communities. The second ruling, called Bowen Edwards, further cemented the state preemption over local authority. Concerned with the proliferation of fracking operations into heavily populated areas, some of us helped pass ballot measures in 2012 and 13 that were designed to deal with the situation through moratoria or carefully crafted bans in Longmont, Fort Collins, Boulder, Broomfield, and Lafayette, with another almost passed in Loveland. The Boulder County Commissioners also chose to pursue a moratorium for Boulder County. With the exception of the city of Boulder and Boulder County, these cities were sued. Lafayette's ordinance was overturned and not fought. The ban in Longmont and moratorium in Fort Collins are still in the courts, and we should know the outcome shortly. Even should Fort Collins win its case, moratoria are really still only temporary. If Longmont wins, then cities will be able to pass the same kind of ordinance banning the practice of fracking. However, counties and statutory towns and cities will still be left without many remedies. If neither case wins, we're back to square one. There will be nothing but fracking throughout the shale plays and basins in our state. As it is, even friendly local governments are afraid to do much. They know how these court cases will be resolved. Whatever happens, we, and I'm referring to Crete, have to go forward as if everyone in the entire state needs protection now. Some of you may be under the impression that the best way to deal with industry is through an MOU, a Memorandum of Understanding between a local government and industry. Although they get a few minor concessions, a local government really doesn't come from a bargaining position of strength. And generally, these MOUs involve things like berms, weak baseline water testing requirements, fences, and things like that. If a local government and an operator don't agree, the operator just takes their case to the COGCC. In the end, there will be drilling and fracking, and the COGCC, whose job it is to foster oil and gas, is in charge of enforcement. As the town of Erie learned recently, that enforcement doesn't mean much. The COGCC indicated that it wouldn't enforce most of the best management practice provisions in the MOU Erie signed with Encana. And as Erie said, quote, I'm frustrated with the state. The state will not protect its residents, end quote. So, that's where we are. The state agencies, the law and rules don't protect health, safety, welfare, and our homes. Local politicians are either unwilling or afraid to do much. They all think they're going to be sued. State representatives and senators tell us they can't do much, and in the current climate, that may be true. We have an ex-geologist government who drinks frac fluid, and all three of the previous governors have some kind of connection to natural gas and or oil, too. Republican Bill Owens and Democrat Roy Romer are both members of CRED, the oil and gas front group, Coloradans for Responsible Energy Development. So, what's left to do for people who want to protect their families, communities, and the state of Colorado? One thing we can do is to change Colorado law through the initiative process. It has to be a constitutional amendment because otherwise it can be overridden or tampered with by the legislature. It's restricted because initiatives have to meet what is called a single subject rule. This initiative process was started in 2014 by two unrelated groups, Congressman Jared Polis and another group. And I assume that most of you know that everything ended with withdrawn initiatives and the creation of a governor's task force, and at this point, no significant change at all. Last year, in 2015, the court started meeting to discuss alternative constitutional amendment proposals. We came up with an almost ridiculous number of separate ideas at one point, 27 of them. This past summer, that group turned into Coloradans Resisting Extreme Energy Development, CREED, a 501c4 nonprofit designed to lobby and to formulate and run initiatives to address oil and gas and environmental changes to the Constitution. After a lot of discussion and many iterations in language, fast forward to December, CREED submitted 11 constitutional amendments into the legal system. Today, it is down to 3. For practical considerations, we have always thought we could only run two initiatives, but we've not yet selected which two, and you never know, could be all three. All of our initiatives have jumped through two hurdles. One of them is called the title board, which produces what you see as a summary on the ballot. One of our initiatives has received a legal challenge, which will go to the Colorado Supreme Court, and it is expected that the other two will as well, probably today or tomorrow. We feel good about our chances, but we'll wait to see how things play out for about a month to start the petition drive to put these on the ballot. The petitions will be due on Monday, August 8th at 3 p.m., which really only gives us 4 to 4.5 months to make the ballot. The first proposal is number 63, the right to a healthy environment. Although it sounds similar to a proposal Congressman Polis introduced but didn't gather signatures on in 2014, it isn't the same. Similar name, different idea. The main section reads, and I'll quote again, "The natural persons of Colorado, including future generations, have an inherent, indefeasible, and inalienable right to a healthy environment. Protection of this right is hereby deemed to be a fundamental right of natural persons of Colorado." End quote. Indefeasible means not capable of being annulled, overturned, or voided, and inalienable means cannot be given away. This amendment to the state constitution would establish a constitutional right to a healthy environment for natural persons. It defines a healthy environment as, quote again, safe and sustainable conditions for human life, that's an important phrase, including healthy air, water, land, and ecological systems. The amendment requires the state to prioritize the protection of a healthy environment and would give a healthy environment priority over state statutory laws or public interest in oil and gas. It allows local governments to pass laws that are protective of a healthy environment, and if a local law is more protective than a state law rule, then it governs. In addition, there are provisions allowing for lawsuits and damages. This amendment doesn't really impact trivial situations that do not rise to the level of unsafe or unsustainable conditions. What it does do is establish a right that should have been in the Constitution from the beginning, but couldn't have been envisioned when Colorado became a state. The next two proposals will sound more familiar. The second proposal is initiative proposal number 75, local governmental control of oil and gas development. Many of you have seen this idea before. Maybe you even gathered signatures for it. Although the language is a little different than what you saw in 2014, like that ballot initiative, it allows local governments to pass laws, regulations, ordinances, or charter amendments, concerning oil and gas. This version, however, has one significant difference, what we would call a floor, not a ceiling language. To list its points, it authorizes local governments to pass regulations, prohibit, limit, or impose moratoriums on oil and gas development. Of course, the word prohibit means a ban. This allows for a broad range of local government options within their jurisdiction, from localized and very weak to a full-fledged ban. One size may not fit all or be possible in every jurisdiction, but unlike the current situation, local governments will never be able to say my hands are tied, because they won't be tied. Even if you have a non-responsive local government inclined to only sign MOU, it still gives them more basis for negotiation. And the floor, not a ceiling language says that local laws and regulations can be more restrictive of oil and gas and must be at least as protective of a community's health, safety, welfare, and environment as state law is. And there's a preemption clause stating that any local laws that prevent or mitigate local impacts from oil and gas cannot be preempted by the state. The third initiative we're putting forward is number 78, mandatory setbacks from oil and gas development. Setbacks are a very well-established legal concept. Think of an oil and gas-free buffer zone around every home, and for neighborhoods and cities, these can overlap to protect a whole area. In the case of this initiative, the buffer zone would be mandatory around every occupied structure, like home, hospital, or school, as well as what we call a sensitive area, like a drinking or irrigation water source or playground. No one wants a spill into drinking water or irrigation water, and no one wants their children playing near facilities. No new oil or gas well, production or processing facility, hub, or injection well would be allowed within that buffer zone. We kept the idea of setbacks to offer protection to those areas where local governments are what I politely call non-responsive and very unlikely to pass protective measures. Weld County is one of those non-responsive governments. Deciding on a distance or a radius for setback was not easy. Our goal was to choose the most likely to pass distance that would protect the greatest number of people. Although the published literature hasn't settled what an adequate setback distance should be, a very important study came out just a few days ago on February 19th, and they found that the current state-required setbacks for 3 different shale plays, Jonathan Hours along the Front Range, the Niobrara, were inadequate. The current distance is generally 500 feet from homes and 1,000 feet from hospital or schools, clearly inadequate. While we originally submitted 2 different distances and said we would have preferred the larger distance based on evacuation zones and a specific disastrous blowout in Texas, we eventually settled on 2,500 feet, which is roughly 1/2 mile, about 7 football fields. Health studies found that residents living within 1/2 mile of an unconventional gas well were found to have an increased risk of neurological and respiratory health effects and risk of cancer than residents living greater than 1/2 mile away. Other tests have used that distance. The University of Maryland School of Public Health recommended a minimum setback of 2,000 feet, but some of Colorado's operations are much bigger than those studied in Maryland, so a larger setback was clearly warranted. And keep in mind, we originally wanted a 4,000-foot setback based on explosions and evacuation zones, so 2,500 is more than reasonable. To get these initiatives passed, CREED had to register a campaign issues committee with the Secretary of State. It's called Yes for Health and Safety Over Fracking. In fact, anyone who actually spends more than $200 to urge support for any ballot issue is supposed to register with the state, follow a whole bunch of bureaucratic rules, and provide periodic reports. We have to do that, but we don't suggest that anybody else do that. Everything should go through the campaign committee. We have 2 websites, one devoted to CREED as an organization, one to the Issues Committee. They are resistextremeenergy.org and yesforhealthandsafety.org. Again, that's resistextremeenergy.org and yesforhealthandsafety.org. We are conscious that we are challenging one of the biggest and most destructive industries on the planet, which is threatening Colorado and the climate, and we will need your help, all of you, financial, as a volunteer, or at least pass on the word that these initiatives are coming. As I mentioned earlier, petitioning could start as early as next month, and there are many roles to fill, and time will be of the essence. Karen, I think we could take questions now.
Okay, Rev, have you gotten any questions? Rev, are you there?
He might be on mute.
Rev, can you unmute yourself?
Hi, can you hear me now?
Yes.
Okay, great. I had myself on mute twice.
Okay. Have you gotten any questions?
Hold on a second. I'm having a little bit of internet issue.
Did I go too fast? Sorry if I did.
No, thank you very much, Tricia. I really appreciate the work you put into trying to give the story of fracking in a very concise way, and of our need for something like ballot initiative. Bruce, do you have anything to add to this while while Raz is getting his computer thing going?
He's probably on mute too.
Probably. Maybe it's just you and I left.
Well, Karen, do you have any questions?
I do.
Yes,
Can you tell me when you will begin collecting signatures?
Well, Karen, you can answer that better than I can, but it's roughly a month from now.
Mm-hmm. Not a lot of time. We're going to. I also serve on the board of directors for Creed, so I'm wearing a couple hats tonight. I am going to be trying to run the petition part of this, and I keep getting deeper and deeper and learning more and more rules. It gets a little overwhelming, but Raz, have you found any questions?
I'm sorry, you have to forgive me. I got kicked off my internet, and I'm just waiting for the server to reconnect.
Okay.
It loaded the internet? Okay, great. It's loading my email right now.
Okay.
Karen, do you have any more questions while we're waiting?
Yeah, I can just say that I can look out my back window and the moon is gorgeous tonight. So if anybody is on a phone where they can walk and look at the moon, and whatever night star it is, that planet is brilliant tonight too.
Okay, I have a question here from Dick Mallet from Protect Our Lovely.
Okay.
And the question is, what is being planned to counteract the Anadarko plan to send hundreds of people to schools and other organizations in the state to preach the safety and benefits of fracking? And how do we counterbalance that attack?
I'll give an answer both as part of Coloradans against fracking and for Creed, but my suggestion, and obviously we have to mobilize to do this, is that everyone contact their local school board and their school and insist upon equal time.
Mm-hmm. And I will say that I also belong to Sierra Club, and the Sierra Club Beyond Oil and Gas team has a letter that they've written, so if anybody's interested in seeing a letter and an example of what you might send to your principal of your school or to your superintendent of schools, just email Coloradans Against Fracking at gmail.com, and I can send you that information. There was an article about a week ago on this, and then today, I think it was the Denver Business Journal, and sent me a copy of a second article on how great this is that they're out teaching in the schools. So they've been in the Windsor schools, and this one I believe was in Erie, so they're very busy beavers out there telling everybody that fracking is safe.
I just got another question from the lovely Ann Harper.
Hi, Ann.
Her question is there any reason that all three ballot initiatives could not be run? She feels that any one of these drops leaves a huge gap.
I have to say that's essentially a practical question and will probably depend upon funds. It's only practical for someone carrying a petition to carry essentially two. It's quite difficult to actually carry three, which means you're expanding the number of people, you're expanding the printing, you're expanding the advertising. It's kind of a money question.
And we will just say that Anne isn't the only one who would like to have all three of them. It's going to be a very difficult final decision because all of them do have very strong points that I think in their favor. So, the setbacks is sort of an immediate help. Local control helps us keep it out of allows us to have a say in what's going on in our communities. And then healthy environment is just something that, it would be so good to have that in our Constitution to to protect the beautiful lands that we have here in Colorado. So,
And Bruce may want to add more about how the right to help the environment affects fracking itself for oil and gas. Bruce, do you have comments there?
Yes. Can you hear me now?
yes.
Okay, good. The healthy environment one really is a paradigm shift in the sense that it establishes a fundamental right that would be that would have to be protected. And when you say protected, it means that it would have to be judicially protected and enforced, just the way the First Amendment, freedom of speech, right of assembly, to petition government, in prohibition against establishment of religion. So it rises to that highest level, and it can be enforced both by private citizens and or collective associations representing those citizens, and also local government. So it really, and perhaps that's the music of that initiative, in the fact that it has a harmony between private and governmental enforcement for those local governments that want to do it. So it has a little flavor of local control in that. And then the melody, of course, is simply that it has a fundamental constitutional right that is lacking, but it also has a mechanism for enforcement. So it's both a right and a remedy. And it is a long-term solution because it would be available for other contingencies as to other endeavors by corporations that would, in fact, may not even be in operation. Going forward, looking at that. And it does protect only natural persons. So, whereas now, if in fact we, let's say, fracking is dangerous for a variety of reasons, we have the burden of having to prove in a courtroom that it's dangerous, it's unsafe. Whereas when this amendment or this initiative passes to become an amendment to the Colorado Constitution, it switches the burden of proof. The industry would have to then prove, or those individuals trying to secure drilling, that it is in fact safe and healthy. That's a tremendous shifting of burdens that ultimately benefit the people. I don't know if that helps or if that confuses the initiative.
I think that helps a lot, Bruce. Can everybody tell that Bruce is our friendly lawyer? So we appreciate all of his ability to take these and to really get them down to the legal point. I did just receive a text from Harv, who's on the call, saying that he wants us to run all three also. So we might have to, if we're going to run all three, we're going to need more money because just printing we're going to need about 5,000 copies of the petitions for each petition. So that's a lot of petitions out there. 15,000 petitions. Yeah, 5,000 for each issue. So each is like 10 pages. So it's a lot of printing.
That's a lot of signature gathering.
That's a lot of signature gathering, yes. But, what I sense is that we have a lot of momentum that is built, and just hearing how many things are on this call, I know a lot of people are out there anxious and ready for us to get started. Any other questions come in, Raz?
Yes, I have some lining up for you, okay?
Okay.
Questions and also some comments. So we have Jeanette signed up. She wants to be a volunteer. She's going to help out the endeavor.
Okay, please go to the website.
Yeah.
Either website.
Okay. And
Or email us too. info@resistextremeenergy.org or info@yesforhealthandsafety.org. Either one.
Maybe we can send out an email to the member through the MailChimp, the CAF, with the email information.
That would be done.
Yeah.
Great, thank you. Okay, the next question is we have another one from Dick who wants to know will there be paid signature gatherers like oil and gas has?
That will be necessary. Just because you only have 4 to 4.5 months to gather signatures.
Okay. Thank you. We have a question from Phyllis in Paonia. Phyllis wants to know how strong has the issue of balance with public health been pursued in litigation in the courts? Is it just ignored? Question mark.
I wish Dan Leftwich were on the call. I didn't hear his name come by. He currently has a case before the Colorado Supreme Court representing the youth, and they're suing the COGCC on the basis that they have not protected health, safety, and welfare. There was another suit that I believe was dropped. I know Anita Sherman was involved, but I believe it was dropped. And I think it's gone particularly far.
Yeah, I think that speaking from when we put when we got sued in Longmont, we really didn't have time to bring up health concerns. They just immediately shoved it on from district court to the appellate court to the Supreme Court. So I don't think that health concerns were really brought forward and into an evidentiary type hearing. Depending on what happens with the cases, we might have time for that later. But so far, I think they've been largely ignored.
Karen, this is Bruce. On that topic, one of the reasons why previous cases have been unsuccessful is simply that there is